We're going to learn about loops in this video, and loops do exactly what the word says. They loop over a chunk of code. And this brings us to the topic of control structures. And control structures in programming, that's just a fancy phrase for saying, hey, how does the computer read a program? So a computer reads a program from top to bottom. And we have a really simple program here. It's just a basic loop. I'm going to go through and explain it all to you in a second. But right now, let's look at how a computer reads a program. Computer starts and just starts reading it from top to bottom, very much like a human reads a book from top to bottom. And that is a control structure. That's the normal flow control of a computer reading a program. That's how you'd say that. And that flow control is known as sequence. Well, there's two other control structures, conditional and iterative. Conditional will be something like an if statement or a switch statement. Switch, that's how you spell switch. And a conditional, we're going to learn about conditionals in the next chunk of code, in the next series of videos. And then next two chunks of code, two series of videos. And then after that we have iteratives. And iteratives we're learning about in this video. So an iterative could also just be a loop. You don't have to get hung up on, hey, it's one word or the other. It's just this basic idea. And the main takeaway you want is with a control structure, a program is read by a computer from top to bottom, though it'll occasionally hit a loop like this and then loop over a chunk of code over and over and over again. Or it will hit a conditional. And if we drop in here, we could open up a conditional and we could say, hey, here's a conditional. And when it hits this condition, if the condition is true, it'll run the chunk of code in the middle. And so that's the first takeaway from this video, is that in programming, when you talk about how a computer reads code, the computer reads code in a sequence from top to bottom. That's the normal flow of the code. And occasionally it'll hit a control structure like a conditional or an iterative. And that would be an if statement or a switch statement and a loop. So let's take a look at how this loop works. And this file is here inside the code at 01 init condition post. And I've named this init condition post for a reason, because right here is my initializer, here is my condition, and here is my post. And let me explain to you what those three things mean. This initializes a variable, and the variable I is initialized to 0. And then here, the condition, we're checking to see if I is less than or equal to 100. And so while I is less than or equal to 100, this loop will continue. So we start out at 0, it comes down here, it prints 0, and let's just run this to see what it looks like. So I'm going to type go run, and then type in the name of the file. I'll just type in AR, around is what I actually named the file name. And once I have AR typed in, I can hit tab on my computer, and that completes the file name. And when I run it, it starts out, and the first time through this loop, it prints 0. And then the post occurs after the loop, and it adds 1 to it. It says I is now 1. Is 1 less than or equal to 100? Yes, that's true. And so it goes through the loop one more time. And it continues doing that until it gets to 100. And then once it's reached 100 and printed 100, it goes to post, adds 1, it becomes 101. Is 101 less than or equal to 100? And that is no longer true. And so now, because that's no longer true, it exits the loop. And so that's the basics of how a loop works. Excuse me. All right, and that's the basics of control structures. One of the last things I want to leave you with is if you want to read about this, I'm not always going to be here to answer all the questions, and there's no way I could probably answer all the questions, but I want you to know how to find answers to questions if I haven't provided them, or if you, if you come across something that wasn't covered in this training. And you can look in two places for that. One place you can look, of course, we've already talked about this, is the programming language specification. And so if you came down here, you would see under statements, 4 statements, and you can read about 4 statements here with the BNF, documentation for how they explain all that right there. And then you could also come to effective Go. And likewise in effective Go, you could try searching for 4, and you'll see right here under control structures, we have if, which would be the conditional, and switch, which would be another type of conditional, which we're going to learn about in future videos. And then also here is the for statement. And this provides an example of the for init condition post, which we just saw. And we're going to take a look at these other examples in the next couple of videos.